All right, John Fredericks Radio Network. Good to have you with us today. Joining us now from the Job Creators Network, the man with the plan. He's been getting about 3 hours sleep a day since this whole virus meltdown started. And this is Alfredo Ortiz, the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. Alfredo, good morning. Great to have you.
Hey, John. Good morning. How are you doing?
Let's talk about the PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan, which is the savior of small businesses. So the best thing we got going on here is you can get on with me, and our little company applied for it, so I could walk you through exactly what happened. You want me to do that real time?
Yeah, please do, because I want people to understand. I mean, look, there were some bumps and glitches along the way, but overall, I mean, I'm talking to people that have gotten it, and they're like, hey, you know what? All things considered, a couple days worth of a wait, a one-page application, and I got money in my bank now.
Okay, so we made the application on Friday. That was a week ago Friday, so that would have been what? April the 3rd, which was, I think, the day you can make it. So it took my wife, Ann, who's our CFO, it took her 50 minutes, start to finish. That included the application, one-page worksheet, all the documents attached behind it. Now, if you don't have the documents, obviously it's going to take you several hours. But if you have a small business and you're running a business, you have a tax return, you have a P&L, you have a payroll form because you're paying payroll taxes. You have all that or you can't run the business. So it took her 50 minutes exactly. We put the application into our bank, which is a very small credit union in Chesapeake, Virginia. This is not a big bank, right? They only have a couple people there. It's a tiny little bank. So we put that in, and they got back to us same day. I think we put in at noon. They got back to us and said, hey, we have it. Then there was some communication about one other thing that she needed that she didn't include. She sent that. That was maybe Monday. And then she got an email back on, let's see, today's Thursday, Wednesday. So this is all within 5 days. They said, okay, your loan has been funded, approved. These are the closing documents. It's not like the people that are getting $1,200. The way the bank looks at this is you're borrowing money, and there has to be closing documents. So they sent the closing documents. She signed those last night by DocuShare, and they said that money should be available to us in our account tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the latest Monday. So let's say it comes tomorrow. Application to wire in exactly 7 days. I don't know how you could humanly, with $350 billion and 3,500 banks involved, I don't know humanly how it would be possible to do better than 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And when I started first having the conversations with the Secretary, what we were talking about is 72 hours. So I have to tell you, it's still Herculean what they pulled off, right, John? I mean,
72 hours, you can't do it in 72 hours because you have to do the application, do the loan. They have to process it. They have to get all the documents they need, and then you have to close. I mean, this isn't like you're getting a check in the mail like the $1,200 ones. I mean, I want everybody to understand the way the government and your bank goes through this as we have done it. Right. It's like you're applying for a loan. You have to sign documents, and you're accountable to pay it back. And then if you qualify for the grant, which is the loan forgiveness, there's paperwork you have to do for that. So, and the reason why you have to do all this is one reason: stop or minimize fraud.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And so all things considered, John, if you think about it, I mean, the SBA processed in 3 days roughly what they process in an entire year. And so, the amount of demand for it, which is exactly why the Senate is convening again, and hopefully by unanimous consent, gets another $251 billion added to this program to make it an even $600 billion available for small business owners. Now, of course, the Democrats are up to their typical political shenanigans and want to add another, like $250 billion of other stuff above and beyond this. And this is the stuff that kills me, because I'm based on my rough calculations, John, of what the unemployment numbers are going to come in for tomorrow, let's say, and based on the past 2 weeks, about 45,000 jobs are being lost per hour.
Per hour?
For every hour that these Democrats...
Did you say per hour?
Per hour.
Say that again.
Based on my calculations, just if you look at the past 2 weeks, John, right? Just the past 2 weeks on a per hourly basis. And again, this is my quick rough math as we were talking here on the phone, back of the envelope. It's roughly 45,000 jobs per hour that are being lost. So for every hour that Pelosi, Chuck and Nancy are sitting there trying to do their typical, political shenanigans and BS, quite frankly, 45,000 jobs are being lost per hour. There's no time for this. And they have to understand that. And that's the message we got to get out there this morning, John. And, whatever we can do to get your listeners to call in to the Senate offices. I think Mitch McConnell set up a hotline last night for these kinds of calls to take this, because we need to support an immediate passage of this, and we need to get something signed and in place by tomorrow, right, so that we can continue to fund these loans, because you just experienced what it was to get one of those. And I'm getting calls left and right of people who have gotten them, and these are lifelines for these small businesses.
Well, they are lifelines. I just want to assure everybody that if you qualify for one of these, the media is fake news again, is saying it's not working and nobody's getting any money. And that's just false, right? I mean, it depends on your bank. Like, you might have a bank that's bigger than ours, so maybe it's not 7 days, it's 10 days or 11 days. But all of these are being processed. And if you talk to real life business owners, and I talked to 5 of them that have done this in the past 2 days, they're having success with it. They're getting, look, what you want is communication back from your bank. I received your application. It's in review. It's in process. And remember, again, they just don't hit a button and forward it, right? Somebody's got to look at the application. They have to verify your business, verify your payroll, because these are all the things that go into it. And you want those safeguards because, look, Alfredo, we already know that out of this $2.2 trillion, out of the $350 billion, 10% of this is going to be stolen, fraud. I mean, everybody, factor that in. I mean, you can't do anything about it.
Which is unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
Right. Which is absolutely unfortunate. But we got to focus on folks like yourself and others who, legitimate businesses that need legitimate needs, need legitimate funding right now.
Exactly. So
right.
We're with Alfredo Ortiz. He's the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. So the additional funding is driven by the fact we're not changing or adding to the program. We just want to be sure that everybody that applies has access, so it's not a race, right? That's the object of it?
Yeah, that's right, John, because remember on April 3rd, businesses like yourself were able to apply. But on April 10th, basically what's that, tomorrow, I guess, already, right? I've lost track of my days, John. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, those 1099s, they can start applying. I mean, that is huge, John, and we got to get that message out, too. I mean, this is amazing that independent contractors are going to be able to be part of this and be able to be able to take advantage of these, forgivable loans. Again, I call them grants because that's what they are, right? If you follow the guidelines, which are not cumbersome, I mean, it's very simple. If you basically use it for payroll for an 8-week period, and you use the funds for no more than, for basically 75% has to go to payroll, 25% for all other. But if you follow those guidelines, these are refundable loans. They're grants, John. And so, to have all businesses basically available. And by the way, 501c3s, nonprofits, religious organizations, those are, eligible as well. And so, so this is big stuff. We got to give, shout outs to Senators Rubio and Collins, and also Secretary Mnuchin for pulling off something that was Herculean. And quite frankly, Mnuchin and his team working with the SBA to pull off a brand new lending facility in less than 7 days, $350 billion worth. I think the last numbers I had was we had almost 300,000 loans given out for almost $80 billion. Mm-hmm. And the estimate, John, here's the real news. The estimate was roughly that about 6 million jobs are being saved so far because of that.
I get a text here from Alan in Fairfax, Virginia. Alan says, what about businesses that are not affected negatively by this? Are they also eligible to get the loan? For instance, if you own a gun store. Do you have the answer to that, Alfredo?
John, from my perspective, everybody's been impacted. Honestly, if you don't feel like you haven't been impacted, then don't apply. Leave the money for your neighbor next door, your neighboring business next door. But, my perspective is every business is going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form. But if you truly believe you're not and you're going to do great, then don't apply. Leave the money for others.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to apply if you don't need it. But this is not based on need. This is not like the disaster loan where you have to show documentation that your business has been hurt, revenue that's gone down. Basically, if you qualify and you're going to keep people on the payroll, you're going to be eligible. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think the line, I don't have the form in front of me, literally one of the certifications is that because of COVID-19, you've been impacted.
Right.
Who has not been impacted?
Right. I mean, there's
but it sounds like this guy is. So congratulations, gun owner or gun store owner.
Exactly.
You've done well.
Look, Alfredo, you guys have done a fabulous job in getting this out. What advice do you have to a small business owner out there now?
Well, first of all, have patience. If you know when you apply to this program, have patience. Do it. Call up your banker. There were some bumps along the way, and the media, of course, wanted to jump all over that to try to make the Trump administration look bad. But again, what they pulled off was Herculean in nature, and it's working. It's working enough, and that's why they're asking for another $251 billion today, because the program is working. So go to your bank. Wells Fargo, for example, by the way, Wells Fargo, as of last night, is open for business now. They were kind of hiding behind this regulatory artificial regulation, basically, that they were saying was capping them at $10 billion. But as of last night, the Federal Reserve released them of that momentarily and temporarily for the purposes of the PPP loan. So Wells Fargo is open for business to accept more of these, which is great news because we need to have as many banks as possible. I think there are over 3,300 banks now that are actually accepting these applications, and that's important. You don't have to just go through the SBA to do this. You can go down to your bank. So I encourage every small business owner to pick up the phone, call the bank, your banking officer that you currently use, ask them about this, put in the application. It's money that is there for the taking if you need it, and if you're a small business owner, you qualify. It's going to be bumpy, next 45 days, John. It's going to be bumpy, right? Batten down the hatches. It's still going to be ugly as we pull out of this. But, persevere through this. We as a country will get through this, and that's the biggest thing is, words of encouragement. We work together. We'll get out of it together.
Terry in Ashland says, John, is there a minimum number of employees to have for the loan? No, but you have to have employees. Like if you have no employees, you don't qualify. Then you're an independent contractor. Then you go through a different process starting tomorrow. You have to have somebody on a W-2 payroll in order to qualify.
But again, as of tomorrow,
yeah,
independent contractors, for example, will also qualify.
Right. So say you have a business and you're an independent contractor. You have no employees. You get people helping you on a contract basis. You'll be able to apply today as an independent contractor. But the loan that you could apply for on April 3rd was based that you had to have employees, and I think it was up to 500, and you had a maximum of $10 million. We're with Alfredo Ortiz. So, Alfredo, everything we're doing now is a Band-Aid to get businesses through April, maybe a couple of weeks in May. But we got to get this country back opened. The curve is flattening. Those that want to keep us shut down are not looking at the economic costs, which I've been railing on now for weeks. Suicide, drug overdose, family violence, domestic violence, alcoholism. I mean, it goes on and on and on. When are we going to be able to open the country up and go back to work?
That's a great question. And, John, if I could, before I answer that question, just remind people to go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. We have a lot of very helpful information, for the last piece of the segment that people can find information on jobcreatorsnetwork.com. So to answer your question is we hope as soon as possible we have to get ahead of this virus. And when you look at what's going on from the medical perspective, in terms of therapeutics, potential, plasma therapies that they're looking at, testing procedures and protocols, rapid tests like the Abbott test, that is basically it's a 5-minute test. I mean, all of this is going to go a long way to get ahead of this curve, so that we shut this down as quickly as possible in terms of the virus itself, and we're able to get people back to work. I personally believe it's not going to be a national, we're open for business. I think it's going to have to be kind of like a rolling opening. And there are going to be certain pockets in states and counties even that can open faster than others. I think New York is going to be probably is going to be in trouble for a while. I just personally believe that. But there are other parts of the country I think can start opening up safely, and especially if we can get some of these therapeutics. I know there's a lot of talk about the hydroxychloroquine. I know the president's been talking about that a lot, and from a global perspective, it looks like there's some possibilities of that. As you know, John, we've been actively talking about making sure supply is available if that appears to be a therapeutic that works. We believe that supplies should be there. The one thing that this whole crisis has shown is that government really should be, we should be looking at government to help coordinate but not control. And we have to make sure that it gets out of the way when it needs to get out of the way. And I think what we've also seen is that when it does get out of the way, the speed at which innovation can happen is just unbelievable. I mean, when you see these machines, that are coming through, being approved by FDA in record time, that's what we need more of, John, to get ahead of this thing so that we can open up our economy as soon as possible.
May 1st is when we have to open it up, Alfredo. We're going to have to live with this virus a while. They told us that we shut the economy down, the greatest job-creating machine in the history of the world. They told us we shut it down because we didn't want to overrun our healthcare system and run out of beds and ventilators. That is not happening. 5 days ago, they told us 250,000 people were going to die. Now they say it's 60,000. That's been revised down 75% in 5 days. We got to get back to work. The longer this thing goes on, this is not a spigot, Alfredo, that you just, okay, it's July 7th and we can just turn the spigot on and everybody go back to work. It'll be the same as it was. The calculation you gave me that 45,000 people an hour were losing their jobs, I mean, that is an incredible, shocking number. And the social and economic costs that go along with that has to be factored in. Alfredo, I'm out of time.